Ever wondered what really happens when you disappear? Completely? Not for a day, not to play games, not to make someone jealous. I mean, you simply vanish. No messages, no explanations, no checking their profile, no looking back. Most people believe that chasing harder earns respect. Stoicism teaches the exact opposite. The moment you stop chasing, the moment your silence replaces your words, the entire emotional dynamic begins to change. Because people rarely appreciate constant availability. They appreciate what they fear losing. And by the time they realize your value, you're already gone. Here's the truth most people never talk about. Your absence speaks louder than your presence ever could. Silence forces people to face emotions they spent months avoiding. It exposes regret. It reveals attachment. And it uncovers the value they were too distracted to see. In today's video, we're going to uncover 10 powerful psychological stages people experience after you simply disappear from their life. You'll discover why silence creates more impact than arguments, why walking away is sometimes the greatest act of self-respect, and why emotionally strong people never beg to be chosen. Make sure you stay until the very end, because the final lesson isn't about making someone miss you. It's about becoming the kind of person who no longer needs anyone's validation to feel complete. If you're ready to reclaim your peace, your confidence, and your power, comment below. Silence is my strength. Now, let's begin with the first stage. 1. The shock they never expected. Everything begins with a shock. Not because you argued, not because you fought, but because you disappeared completely. Most people never believe you'll actually leave. They assume you'll send one more message, make one more call, give one more chance. They think your kindness has no limit. And that's exactly why they become comfortable taking you for granted. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us that our peace should never depend on another person's behavior. The moment you finally understand that, you stop begging, you stop chasing, you simply walk away. And that's when everything changes. Your silence becomes louder than every conversation you ever had. For the first time, they realize they no longer have access to you. No good morning texts, no late night conversations, no emotional support whenever they need it. The person they believed would always be there is suddenly gone. That realization creates something they weren't prepared for. Loss. Real loss. Because people often confuse constant availability with weakness. They don't realize your presence was a privilege until that privilege disappears. Now they replay every moment, every ignored message, every broken promise, every time they made you feel like an option instead of a priority. And one question keeps echoing inside their mind. What if they're really gone this time? That's the moment the first crack appears in their confidence. Not because you punished them, but because you finally chose yourself. And that decision changes everything. Now let's move to the second stage. 2. The empty space you leave behind. After the initial shock begins to fade, something unexpected happens. They start noticing the empty space you left behind. At first, they try to ignore it. They keep themselves busy. They scroll through social media. They spend time with friends. They throw themselves into work. Anything to avoid thinking about you. But no distraction lasts forever. Eventually, the silence catches up with them. And that's when the emptiness begins. They start noticing the little things. The conversations that used to brighten their day. The messages they expected to see. The comfort of knowing someone genuinely cared. You may not have realized it, but your presence had become part of their daily life. Like a light that's always on. Nobody notices it while it's there. But the moment it goes out, the darkness becomes impossible to ignore. This is where many people make a painful discovery. They thought you were replaceable. They thought someone else could easily take your place. But the truth is, people can replace faces. They cannot replace energy. They cannot replace loyalty. They cannot replace the way you made them feel. And that's what starts haunting them. Not your appearance, not your words, but the feeling they experienced when they were around you. A feeling they suddenly can't find anywhere else. The more days pass, the larger the void becomes. What once felt normal now feels missing. And for the first time, they begin to understand your value. Not because you explained it, not because you demanded respect, but because your absence forced them to see it. And the scary part? This is only the beginning. Because once the emptiness settles in, a new emotion starts taking control. Curiosity. And that's where things become even more intense. Let's move to the third stage. 3. The obsession to know where you went. The human mind has a strange habit It always wants what it can no longer reach. The moment you disappear, you become a mystery, and nothing is more powerful than a mystery left unsolved. At first, they tell themselves you're probably busy. Maybe you're taking some time for yourself. Maybe you'll message tomorrow. But tomorrow comes, and there's still nothing. No text, no call, no reaction. That's when curiosity quietly turns into obsession. They begin asking questions they never cared to ask before. Comma backslash, where are they? Backslash, comma backslash, what are they doing? Backslash, comma backslash, have they already moved on? Backslash, comma backslash, are they happier without me? Backslash, every unanswered question creates another. Every silent day makes their imagination even louder. They check your social media. They look at your old photos. They reread old conversations. Sometimes they even ask mutual friends about you, pretending they don't really care. But deep inside, they care more than ever, because uncertainty is uncomfortable. The mind always tries to fill empty spaces with stories, and most of those stories make them feel even worse. They begin imagining you smiling again, growing stronger, meeting new people, living peacefully without them. That thought becomes impossible to ignore. This is the power of silence. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. Your absence allows their own imagination to do all the work. The less they know, the more they think about you. The more they think about you, the harder it becomes to forget you. Without realizing it, they've become emotionally trapped by the very silence they once ignored. And soon, that obsession transforms into something even more painful. Self-reflection. Let's move to the fourth stage. 4. When they finally face themselves. There comes a moment when running is no longer possible. The distractions stop working. The silence grows louder. And for the first time, they are left alone with their own thoughts. This is where everything begins to change. Because without you there to comfort them, there is no one left to blame. They start replaying every memory, every conversation, every argument, every moment they ignored your feelings. At first, they try to justify their behavior. I was just busy. I didn't mean to hurt them. They were overreacting. But the more they think, the weaker those excuses become. Deep down, they know the truth. They remember the times you stayed when anyone else would have left. The times you forgave them. The times you chose peace instead of pride. And suddenly, they realize something painful. You weren't asking for too much. You were asking for the bare minimum. Respect, honesty, consistency, things they could have given, but chose not to. Now guilt slowly replaces confidence. Not because you made them feel guilty, but because their own conscience refuses to stay silent. Stoicism teaches that every action has a consequence. Sometimes that consequence doesn't arrive immediately. It arrives when the person you depended on stops showing up. That's when they truly understand your value. Not while you were standing beside them, but after your footsteps had already faded away. And here's the hardest part for them. No apology can erase the past. No excuse can change what happened. They're forced to live with the realization that they lost someone who genuinely cared. Not because fate separated you, but because they failed to appreciate you when they had the chance. And once this realization settles into their heart, a powerful urge begins to grow. The urge to bring you back. Let's move to the fifth stage. 5. They start chasing what they once ignored. This is the turning point. The same person who barely made time for you suddenly can't stop thinking about you. What once felt ordinary now feels impossible to replace. The silence has done something no argument ever could. It forced them to experience life without you. And they don't like what they feel. So they begin reaching out. Maybe it's a simple message. Hey, how have you been? Maybe they react to one of your old posts. Maybe they find an excuse to start a conversation. Or maybe they send a long paragraph saying they miss you. But none of these messages come from confidence. They come from fear. The fear of realizing that someone they thought would always stay has finally walked away. This is where the roles quietly reverse. You were once the one waiting for replies. Now they're checking their phone every few minutes, hoping you'll answer. You were once the one trying to fix everything. Now they're searching for a way back into your life. And suddenly, they understand something they never understood before. Attention is valuable. Loyalty is rare. And genuine love should never be taken for granted. Stoicism reminds us that real strength isn't found in making people chase you. It's found in knowing when to stop chasing them. That's why your silence is so powerful. It isn't punishment. It isn't revenge. It's self-respect. The moment you stop begging to be valued, People begin to realize exactly what they lost. Some will apologize. Some will promise to change. Some will do everything they can to win you back. But here's the question that truly matters. Have they changed? Or are they simply afraid of losing access to you? There's a huge difference. And understanding that difference can change your life forever. Because the next stage reveals the battle happening inside their mind. A battle between relief and deep regret. Let's move to the sixth stage. 6. The battle between relief and regret. When you first disappear, they may actually feel relieved. No more difficult conversations. No more emotional responsibility. No more accountability. They convince themselves they finally have complete freedom. For a while, it even feels exciting. They spend more time with friends. They keep themselves busy. They post smiling pictures. They act like everything is perfectly fine. From the outside, it looks like they've already moved on. But appearances can be deceptive, because the loudest battles are fought in silence. The excitement slowly fades. The distractions lose their power. The nights become quieter. And that's when regret quietly walks in. They begin comparing everyone they meet to you. No conversation feels the same. No connection feels as genuine. No one understands them the way you did. What they thought was freedom starts feeling like loneliness. Stoicism teaches us that people often mistake temporary pleasure for lasting happiness. But pleasure fades. Character remains. And your character, your loyalty, your calm presence, those things are impossible to replace. Now they understand the difference. They remember the moments they ignored, the love they failed to appreciate, the person who stood beside them when life became difficult. And suddenly, the life they once wanted feels strangely empty. The regret grows heavier every single day. Not because you're reminding them, but because their own memories refuse to let them forget. This is the price of taking someone for granted. You don't realize their value while they're standing beside you. You realize it when they're no longer there. And the deeper the regret becomes, the more desperate they become to regain control. That's exactly what happens in the next stage. Let's move to the seventh stage. 7. They try to regain control. Regret is uncomfortable, but losing control is even worse. By now, they realize something has changed. You're no longer waiting. You're no longer reacting. You're no longer available whenever they want. And that terrifies them. Because people who once had easy access to you often struggle the most when that access disappears. So they begin looking for ways to pull you back in. Maybe they suddenly become more active on social media. They post pictures that seem a little too perfect. They share quotes about moving on. They want you to notice. They want you to react. Sometimes they'll even mention someone new. Not because they've moved on, but because they hope you'll feel jealous. It's not confidence. It's insecurity hiding behind a smile. They want proof that you still care. Proof that they still matter to you. But this time, you remain silent. Not because you're playing games, because you've outgrown them. Stoicism teaches that emotional control is true power. The strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. It's the one who refuses to let emotions control their decisions. While they're searching for your attention, you're building your peace. While they're trying to trigger a reaction, you're protecting your energy. And that's what frustrates them the most. They expected the old version of you, the one who always explained, always apologized, always stayed. Instead, they found someone completely different. Someone who finally understands their own worth. The moment they realize they can no longer manipulate your emotions, they lose the only control they thought they had. And that's when panic quietly begins. Because nothing is more frightening than realizing the person you once took for granted no longer needs you. Now the silence becomes heavier than ever. And that's exactly where the next stage begins. Let's move to the 8th stage. 8. The crushing weight of silence. Silence has a power most people underestimate. When you stop explaining, when you stop defending yourself, when you stop trying to make someone understand your value, something changes. Your silence becomes a message. And sometimes, that message is stronger than 1,000 words. At first, they think you'll break. They expect a message, a reaction, a sign that you still care. But when nothing comes, reality starts to hit. They begin feeling the weight of your absence. The conversations they once ignored are now the conversations they wish they had. The calls they didn't answer are now the calls they wish they could receive. The attention they thought was guaranteed is now something they can't reach. And this is the moment they understand something important. Your presence was never ordinary. It was something valuable they failed to appreciate. In a world where everyone is constantly connected, silence feels powerful. Everyone expects instant replies, instant attention, instant access. So when someone suddenly becomes unavailable, the mind starts searching for answers. Why aren't they responding? Why aren't they trying anymore? Did I finally push them too far? These questions begin creating a storm inside their mind. But the most important part is this. Your silence isn't about hurting them. It's about healing yourself. A true Stoic doesn't disappear to create chaos. A true Stoic steps away to protect their peace. Because sometimes the strongest response isn't an argument. It's acceptance. It's walking away without anger. It's choosing yourself without needing anyone's permission. And when they finally understand that your silence isn't temporary, that's when the deepest fear begins. The fear that maybe they have lost you forever. Let's move to the ninth stage. 9. The fear of losing you forever. This is the moment everything becomes real. Until now, they believed there was still a chance. They believed you would eventually return. They believed the old pattern would repeat itself. But then something changes. They start realizing, maybe this time is different. Maybe you're not coming back. And that thought creates a fear they never expected to feel. The fear of losing someone who was once always there. They begin imagining a future without you. No more conversations. No more shared memories. No more knowing they can reach you whenever they want. And suddenly, the person they thought they could never lose feels completely out of reach. This is when pride starts disappearing. The ego becomes smaller. The excuses become weaker. Because when someone truly feels they might lose something forever, their priorities change. They remember the moments they should have appreciated, the kindness they overlooked, the patience they took for granted, the person who stayed even when things were difficult. And one painful realization begins to appear. They didn't lose you because you stopped caring. They lost you because they didn't value what they had. But here's where the Stoic mindset becomes important. Your goal was never to make someone afraid. Your goal was never to make someone suffer. Your goal was to become strong enough to walk away from anything that steals your peace. Whether they return or not, you have already won. Because you stopped measuring your worth by someone's attention. You stopped waiting for someone else to choose you. You chose yourself. And that is a level of strength many people never reach. The most powerful transformation happens when you realize you don't need someone to miss you in order to know your value. You already know it. And that realization leads to the final stage. The moment where you stop needing their validation completely. Let's move to the 10th stage. 10. The realization of emotional independence. This is where everything comes full circle. Because the greatest victory was never about making someone miss you. The greatest victory was finding yourself again. For a long time, you may have believed your happiness depended on another person. Their attention, their approval, their love. You spent your energy trying to prove that you were worthy. But disappearing teaches you a powerful lesson. Your worth was never decided by someone else's ability to see it. It was always there. You just stopped recognizing it. When you finally step away, you create space. Space to think. Space to heal. Space to understand who you really are without needing anyone's validation. And something incredible happens. You become calmer. You become stronger. You stop checking if they noticed your absence. You stop wondering if they regret losing you. Because your focus changes. You are no longer trying to be remembered. You are building a life that is impossible to ignore. This is the true meaning of emotional independence. A Stoic person doesn't need revenge. They don't need to prove a point. They don't need someone else to feel pain before they can feel peace. Their peace comes from within. And when someone reaches this level, the entire world sees them differently. They carry themselves differently. They speak differently. They choose differently. Because they finally understand one simple truth. The person who controls your emotions controls your life. And the moment you take that control back, you become unstoppable. Maybe they notice your change. Maybe they regret losing you. Maybe they come back. But none of that controls you anymore. Because you no longer need anyone to complete you. You are already complete. And that is the ultimate power of disappearing. Not that someone misses you, but that you finally stop abandoning yourself. Now let's talk about the final lesson. Final lesson, the power of choosing yourself. The biggest mistake people make is believing that walking away is about making someone regret losing you. It's not. Walking away is about remembering who you are. Because the moment you start begging for attention, you give someone else control over your peace. The moment you accept being treated like an option, you teach people that your value can be ignored. But the moment you choose yourself, everything changes. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop trying to convince someone to see your worth. You simply become unavailable for anything that destroys your inner peace. That's the difference between weakness and strength. A weak mind stays where it is constantly disrespected because it fears being alone. A strong mind understands that being alone is better than losing yourself. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They knew true power comes from mastering your own mind, not controlling others, not seeking approval, not depending on someone else's actions to decide your happiness. Your peace belongs to you. Your confidence belongs to you. Your life belongs to you. So if someone walks away, let them. If someone fails to appreciate you, accept it. If someone realizes your value too late, let them learn that lesson. Because your mission was never to make them miss you. Your mission was to become someone who no longer needs to be chased, chosen, or validated. Remember this. The moment you stop searching for your worth in someone else's eyes, you finally discover your own. If this message changed the way you see yourself, comment below. I choose myself. Subscribe to Stoic Empire for more lessons on discipline, emotional strength, and mastering your mind. Remember, silence is powerful, but self-respect is unstoppable. Final ending, become unbreakable. There will come a point in your life where you stop trying to convince people of your value. You stop chasing those who only notice you when you're gone. You stop fighting for a place in someone's life when they never fought to keep you in theirs. Because real strength is not proving that you can make someone regret losing you. Real strength is reaching a place where their reaction no longer controls your emotions. Whether they come back, whether they apologize, whether they finally understand what they lost, it doesn't change who you have become. You have learned the most important lesson. Your peace is more valuable than anyone's temporary attention. The strongest people are not the ones who never get hurt. They are the ones who get hurt, but still choose growth over bitterness. They choose discipline over desperation. They choose silence over unnecessary battles. And they choose themselves. So remember this. Never disappear to make someone chase you. Disappear to find yourself. Because when you rebuild your confidence, when you master your emotions, when you become comfortable standing alone, you become a person that cannot be easily broken. The world respects those who respect themselves. And the moment you stop asking others to see your worth, you start living like you already know it. If this video gave you a new perspective, comment. My peace comes first. Subscribe to Stoic Empire for more lessons on Stoicism, self-mastery, and becoming mentally stronger. Remember, silence creates distance, but wisdom creates power.